All right, everybody, we are back for week 4 of the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. Last week, we went 4-1, losing on Christian Perez. He was up 2-0. Looked like an amazing pick by me until he gassed out in the third round, and Sosa just put it on him. Credit to Sosa for sticking in there because he was clearly down 2 rounds. But you know, it is what it is. The rest of the card, we got it right, and we did pretty good on the predictions. I believe we predicted a finish in every single fight, and there was a finish in every single fight. This week, I think it's a little bit harder to predict the winners, but I do think that in some cases we have a little bit of favorable matchmaking towards a specific side. Before you ask, no, I do not have the odds. They're not on FanDuel, they're not on DraftKings yet, and that's really all I look at when I look for the odds on these fights. But at the end of the day, we got to break them down just like we do every other week. So let's get into week 4. First up on the main card in the featherweight division, you have a battle between Tommy McMillan coming in at 8-0, taking on David McGoyan, who comes in at 7-0. So combined record of 15-0 for this fight. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not supremely impressed with Tommy McMillan. And I see a lot of people taking a shot on McGoyan. And I kind of understand, but I think you're kind of underrating McMillan while overrating McGoyan. McGoyan is going to have the better wrestling. I think he's going to have better takedowns, a really good blast double, good control from the top. And if he does get McMillan on the ground, I think he probably would control him there and just work him over to a late finish, either via flattening him out and ground and pounding with a TKO, or flattening him out, softening him up, and allowing for him to give up his neck and probably grabbing like a rear naked choke in the second or the third round. Like, I get it. I understand why you're picking. But for as much as I think McMillan might be a little bit overrated, like, you know, coming into Contender, I think he's way better than McGoyan on the feet. And I don't think McMillan is that great on the feet. I know it's like, it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but I think McMillan isn't the best on the feet, but he's better than McGoyan when it comes to the striking. I've seen McGoyan. He has some decent kicks, decent head kicks, decent switch kicks from the lead leg. Like, he can throw those kicks up pretty fast. But in terms of the boxing exchanges between the two, I think McMillan is way better with his boxing than McGoyan. And I think, you know, every fight starts on the feet. And yes, takedowns and wrestling have worked against guys from Tim Welsh's camp, a.k.a. Sean O'Malley. But, you know, I don't necessarily think McGoyan has the game to hold down McMillan, get on top, beat him up, and work him over and kind of break him later on down the stretch. Because in the beginning of every round, it's going to start on the feet. And I think McMillan is the sharper striker. Has he fought the best competition? No. And I hate when people say, oh, they haven't fought anybody. They haven't fought anybody. Most people on the Contender Series haven't fought anybody good. I think people really need to understand that. And I'm not saying I'm the only one who predicts Contender Series at a high rate. There are other people on here that do. But you guys put too much into the competition before Contender compared to the stylistic matchup that we're dealing with. The competition doesn't matter. To an extent, like if they're fighting hugely high-level guys, then yes, at a certain extent, it does matter. But at this level, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You have to look at the stylistics. And I think every round starts on the feet, and I don't think McGoyan is a good striker. And I think the UFC know what they're doing by setting this fight up. Do I think it's an easy fight? No. I think McGoyan is tough. I think McGoyan is going to, you know, I don't think he's going to quit, but I also think McMillan can kind of just catch him with a good shot on the feet and knock him out or TKO him. Yes, is he going to get taken down? Probably, but I think McMillan probably works his way back up to the feet. And I think McMillan is better on the feet. I think he's sharper. I think he has more variety on the feet. And I think he sets up his shots better when McGoyan just kind of runs in with big shots and leaves himself open for a lot of counters. And I think the counter striking of McMillan is going to be too much for David McGoyan. So I'm taking Tommy McMillan. I'm taking Tommy Gunn. Give me Tommy Gunn, Tommy McMillan via a second round TKO. I think he's going to just beat him up on the feet. And yes, I think the wrestling will work, but it's not going to be enough to win him the fight. And I don't think he's going to be able to rely on that game plan for as long as he needs to. So I'm going to say McMillan and McGoyan is close in the beginning, but the more that McMillan works his way back up, the more he stuffs the takedowns, he's going to start to pick him apart on the feet. and I'm going to say Tommy McMillan wins second round TKO over David McGoyan. I understand, like I said, I understand the reasoning behind people taking McGoyan with the wrestling, the grappling, the top control, and the ability to control on the mat, where I do think he's better than McMillan, but I just don't think he's going to be able to get it there for a prolonged period or get it there long enough to get a finish. So give me Tommy McMillan round 2 TKO in the first fight up. All right, next fight up is a fighter returning to the Contender Series in the highlight, Tuan Ho taking on Eduardo Chapolin Henrique. 14-2 for Henrique and 7-1 for Tuan Ho. Yeah, this is a great fight between Chapolin and Tuan. Obviously, we've seen Tuan Ho on the Contender. He took on Lonair Kavanaugh, got knocked out in the first round. It was close and competitive up until the knockout. A little front kick to the body into a leaping gazelle left hook that ended up knocking Tuan Ho out cold. When you look at Eduardo Henrique, that's a guy who I believe is coming in on short notice. Tuan Ho did have a different opponent originally, but looking at the tape for Chapolin, Chapolin is a solid fighter, man. He is good. This is not an easy fight for Tuan Ho to get a contract. This is probably going to be the best fight on this week of the Contender Series, and I think it's kind of the best fight by a mile. Henrique is very good at letting the fight come to him. He's not so much that he's overly patient, but he sees shots coming, he blocks very well, and he does have a little bit of a hole in the grappling defense. I think if Tuan Ho wants to make it a little bit easier on himself, he might want to resort to the wrestling and takedowns, because we've seen Henrique get taken down, we've seen him get controlled, we've seen him get held down in bad positions and get out-scrambled in certain positions as well. But on the feet, I think this fight is extremely close. You know, Chapolin uses good stance changes. He switches stances mid-combination. He throws good straight punches, and he can catch you with little looping overhands and hooks as you enter the pocket. And that's something that I think Tuan Ho has to be careful of, because you don't want to run in to a big shot from Chapolin. And with the power and explosiveness of Tuan Ho, I do think that he could run into some big shots and potentially get knocked out. Because like I said, Henrique, he can be aggressive in the early goings, and he does have a lot of power in his shots, but he kind of like lets the fight come to him. He's an exciting fighter, but he'll cover and counter. He'll come in, block, boom, counter with a straight down the middle, block, boom, come in with an overhand, catch and shoot, moving around, and he lets the fight come to him. You know, like we said, there's certain fighters where I think composure is good for them. There's other fighters where I think composure is a negative to the aspects of the fight and the fighter that they're taking on in the specific fight we're discussing. But with Henrique, I actually think that the composure could pay dividends for him in the later portions of the fight, just because of the speed advantage that I think Tuan Ho is going to have. I think he'll have a grappling and wrestling advantage in terms of getting the fight to the ground and controlling him if he wants to wrestle, but I also think he's going to have a speed advantage on the feet. I won't necessarily sit here and say he has more power, because we've seen Henrique knock people out, we've seen him drop guys with big shots, and we've seen Tuan Ho catch guys and knock them out cold early in the first round. But I do think that the speed of Tuan Ho is going to be a little bit of a problem for Chapolin. I think that we've seen Henrique get hurt before. We've seen him cover up and try to counter back. And I just think that the speed of Tuan Ho is going to be the biggest problem for him. And then if he does open up and we do see Tuan Ho using that wrestling, he might just land a big shot, hurt him, wait for the counter, and then change levels and take down Henrique and win the rounds that way. One thing I will say is I do not expect this fight to go the distance. Usually you don't want to say that, you know, knock on wood, cross your fingers. You don't want the fight to go the distance, but I think it's either going to be a late finish from Henrique, where he just kind of absorbs the early storm and then starts to land his long, rangy shots on Tuan Ho, starts to use those straight punches, starts to use front kicks to the body, starts to catch him coming in with knees and elbows, and then just eventually lands a straight shot down the middle that sits down on Tuan Ho. But I think the speed and power is going to be too much, and I'm actually going to predict a second round TKO for Tuan Ho here. I know a lot of people are on Chapolin. A lot of people expecting him to come in here and look good. I think he'll look good, but I think this is a situation where he's going to look good in a fight, but he's going to get finished, and then they're going to give him another shot on the Contender probably next season, or maybe a short notice bout in the UFC. A lot of the times when guys are on the Contender, I do not like to pick against them when they're coming back for the second time. We did it with Cam Rouston. I'm going back to the well here, and I'm taking on Tuan Ho. I think this is a tough fight. I think this is a good stylistic fight. I think this is going to be your fight of the night. But I just think the speed and decision-making of Tuan Ho paired with his power, speed is power and speed kills. I think he's going to be too fast for Henrique, and I think he's going to catch him. I think he's going to rock him, and I think he's going to storm him and put him down in round 2. Give me Tuan Ho, round 2 TKO over Eduardo Chapolin Henrique. I just think he's going to be too fast. And obviously, if Ho slows down, then Henrique can pick it up in the late portions of the second and the third round. He does have power. He's very good on the technical skill level. I just think the speed's going to be too much. So give me Tuan Ho, round 2 TKO in this fight over Eduardo Chapolin Henrique. All right, up next, we have a battle in the lightweight division. We have a fighter in Nallo, who is a former Bellator veteran coming in at 13-3, fighting out of Canada, taking on Brazil's Samuel Silva, who was able to defeat George Hardwick, another fighter who fought on the Contender Series, for the Cage Warriors Lightweight Championship, and he's coming into the Contender Series now with a record of 13 wins, 4 losses, 1 no contest, and out of those 13 wins, he has 11 wins coming by way of finish, basically identical, 5 subs, 6 knockouts, only 2 wins by decision. On the other side with Nallo, you've got a fighter who is 13-3 with all of his wins coming by way of finish, 7 knockouts, and 6 wins by way of submission. I think this is a fight that should be pretty competitive. I'm not the biggest fan of Nallo's style. I don't like guys who kind of sit on a lead or sit on the outside and kind of just pick apart their opponent and don't really fight with a sense of urgency. I don't think Nallo fights with a sense of urgency. He's a good counter striker. He trains under Faraz Sahabi, obviously one of the best gyms out there in Canada, the former home of the GOAT, in my opinion, in George Rush St. Pierre. And, he fights with that cerebral style. Some good side kicks, really good head kicks. He can set him up. A good jab, a good 1-2. He stays on the outside and he fights primarily as a counter striker. I do think that Samuel Silva is going to give him what he wants to a degree. He's going to walk forward. He's going to have that high guard. He's going to look to get on the inside, look to land big overhands, look to land a big left hook, look to land those big power shots and hurt Nallo, to either hurt him and knock him out on the feet or hurt him enough to where he's going to shoot a takedown and potentially leave his neck in the position to catch him in Samuel Silva's signature submission, which is a guillotine choke. A lot of the wins he has via submission do come via that guillotine. And if he hurts a guy who's as tall and long as Nallo, he's either going to back up and probably get trapped up against the cage, try to snipe him coming in, or he's going to get hurt and then look to shoot because he is a grappler in his own right, and then potentially could leave his neck there to get caught in a submission. In this fight, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. I'm taking Samuel Silva. I just think he's the guy who's going to fight with more urgency. I do think that the leg kicks and the long rangy strikes of Nallo could give Silva some trouble. If he chops that lead leg, Silva's very heavy on that lead leg. He walks forward, pressures you, comes in, big overhand right, big left hook, good 1-2 down the middle, covered, counter with a left hook. I do think that the low kicks are going to get to a guy like Samuel Silva, but I just don't see a world where Nallo finishes Samuel Silva. I don't think he submits him, and I don't necessarily see a TKO. I could see him hurting him with leg kicks, but I don't think he's going to do enough to finish this guy. I think for the most part, the win equity for Nallo is probably winning a decision with chopping the lead leg, tenderizing his legs, using the jab, making him weary of the counters and just fighting from the outside and winning primarily a decision. And a lot of the times in his career, he doesn't win decisions. I mean, like I said, all of the wins for Nallo come inside the distance, so he is a finisher. I just don't see him being able to finish a guy like Samuel Silva. Silva's going to be walking forward. He fights, very composed. I think both these guys have good composure, but I do think the fighter who kind of sets up more traps and looks to finish the fight is going to be a guy like Samuel Silva. And yes, the leg kicks could be trouble, but if he hurts Mandel Nallo with a big shot, I mean, he shoots a takedown, he's immediately going to jump on that guillotine. I think a lot of people are going to look at this fight and primarily expect a striking matchup, and I do think that technical-wise, the better striker is Nallo, staying on the outside, using the jab, using the 1-2, landing some good kicks to the body and good low kicks, managing range, and that is true. But eventually, I just see Samuel Silva being able to close off that distance and get into the pocket. And when he gets into the pocket, I think he beats up Mandel Nallo. I think he can throw good leg kicks of his own. I think he can rip the body and come back up top. I think that left hook to the body, the overhand right's going to be a good combination for him. I think he's going to jab, come up the middle with the uppercut, follow with the left hook, cover and counter with the check hook, come over the top with the overhand right. I just think the fighter who's going to be pushing the pace, the fighter who's going to be getting in the face of Mandel Nallo, which yes, is going to set up the counter strikes, but I think it's going to get more to Nallo. It's going to get to him the longer that this fight plays out, and I think he will start to slow down in that second round, and I think the midpoint of the second round going into the third round is where Samuel Silva is going to just start to break him down, ripping shots to the body, over the top, left hook to the body, 1-2, ripping the liver shot, uppercut, hook, liver shot, 1-2, cover, overhand right, left hook, overhand right. And I think eventually he's just going to get that pressure going, get to Mandel Nallo, start to slow him down, and break him later on in the fight. So I'm taking Samuel Silva. I think a submission is definitely live because I think if he starts to feel that pressure, he's going to shoot and potentially leave himself to get caught in that patented guillotine. But I'm going to go with the third round TKO for Samuel Silva. I just think his pressure is going to get to him. I think the first round might be tough, but he's going to start to close him off. He's going to start to land some good shots, and eventually he's going to start to walk him down. He's going to start to cut that cage off. He's going to trap him against those choke points in the cage with those corner posts and the two sides and trap him in the choke point. Force a shot, hurt him, rip him to the body, and just TKO him in the third round. Give me Samuel Silva. I'm going to take him round 3 TKO over Mandel Nallo. I think Nallo's a decent fighter, but I don't think he's UFC level. I don't think Samuel Silva is the greatest fighter, but I think he's better than Nallo, and I think he's going to show it. I'm going to go third round TKO Samuel Silva, just slowing him down and breaking him the longer that the fight goes on. Next up, we've got a battle in the middleweight division with the brother of Michał Oleksiejczuk, trying to make his debut in the UFC in Cezary Oleksiejczuk, 15-3, taking on the undefeated Bellator fighter or former Bellator fighter in Haig, who comes in with 6 victories, no losses, and all 6 of his wins coming by way of submission. We know that Michał Oleksiejczuk has a lot of issues with the takedowns, has a lot of issues with the wrestling, has a lot of issues getting held down and controlled. And I do think Haig does have the style to get to a guy like Cezary Oleksiejczuk. He has the style to get those takedowns, to work him over, to push him against the fence, to get on top of him, beat him up with ground and pound, and look to set up a submission. However, I don't think he's going to be able to get to his grappling before he gets knocked out by Cezary Oleksiejczuk. He throws a very good straight left hand, a very good overhand left. He mixes up his combinations, primarily fighting out of the southpaw stance. Right hook, overhand left. 1-2, right hook, overhand left. Jab, right hook, straight left down the middle. This guy's striking is very solid. He reminds me a lot of his brother, which makes sense, right? And, this is another situation where I think the UFC... Do I think Haig is an easy fight? No. I mean, 6-0, all wins by submission. Clearly a finisher. He's going to be the better grappler. I don't think it's an easy fight, but at the same time, I think it's a fight set up to get a knockout for Cezary Oleksiejczuk. And like I said, Michał Oleksiejczuk has big holes in the grappling. It's not an easy fight, and there is a path to victory for Haig. Get in his face, land some big shots, push him back, get him against the cage, shoot the takedowns, rip him up with some ground and pound, force him to give up his back on the way up, and choke him out. But if Haig doesn't win by a first-round submission, I think he's getting knocked out. I don't think he's going to be able to keep up that heavy pace for 3 rounds without getting tagged up by Oleksiejczuk. And the guy has good striking. He's long, rangy. He has better range and distance control than his brother in Michał Oleksiejczuk. I think he can use that length and frame to kind of pick apart Haig as he tries to crash in and close the distance to get off his wrestling. And yeah, it's probably going to be like a tough first round. But if Theo Haig doesn't win in round 1, I don't think he's going to win. I just don't. And I think he maybe gets in on his hips like once. But again, this is the same ideology of like every fight starts on the feet. And in this fight, I don't think the forward pressure, wrestling heavy, submission-based grappling of Theo Haig is going to be able to work for more than a round without him kind of gassing out. And yes, he can gas out his opponent from going for a bunch of submissions, landing ground and pound. Like, yeah, it's going to take a toll on Oleksiejczuk as well. But I just think he's going to be able to survive. And I'm going to say, like, yeah, he gets taken down, but he gets back up. There's a lot of cage wrestling. He lands a good straight left in the first round that probably stuns Theo Haig. Lands a big shot, hurts him, stops a lot of the takedowns. I think it's more of a defensive round 1 from Cesari. But I think in round 2, he's going to stuff those takedowns easier. And I think he's going to land that right hook to the straight left hand and land right on the chin of Theo Haig and knock him out. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a round 1 knockout. But for Haig, I think it's round 1 submission or bust. And the length, the reach, the combinations of Oleksiejczuk, the way he turns over that left hand, I really like it. And I think he's going to be defensive in the first round, still land some big shots. But it's going to be a lot of wrestling from Haig. But I think he's going to get back up, stuff the takedowns. You know what? No, I'm not even going to say second round. I'm going to say he finishes him in round 1. Give me Cesari Oleksiejczuk round 1 knockout over Theo Haig. I just think he's going to be levels above him on the feet. And yes, can he wrestle? Yes. Can he get him down? Yes. Could he get a submission? Probably. He probably has similar holes in the grappling to his brother and Michał that we've seen before. But I think he's going to knock him out. I think he's going to land that left hand, land that 3-2, rock Theo Haig, and put him out in round 1. Give me Cesari Oleksiejczuk round 1 knockout over Theo Haig to get himself into the UFC alongside his brother. I think this is a good fight, and I think we're going to get a knockout from Cesari here. And now we've got the main event of Week 4 of the Dana White Contender Series. We've got a battle in the welterweight division between Jack Congdon taking on Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani, Lebosnoyani, I think. So, J.P. Lebosnoyani taking on Jack Congdon. In this fight, guys, I think this is going to be a banger for as long as it lasts. But the fighter who I think has the higher skill level is Lebosnoyani. Like, I think he's way better from a technical level. I think he's better at range. He uses his kicks better. He's got a good lead kick, a good rear kick to the head. Fights primarily out of southpaw. He can switch stance, throw the straight left hand, step over into orthodox, throw the overhand right. And the guy's got good power on the feet, good ability to throw, solid technical shots, and he's also a really good grappler. I mean, has he been taken down before? Yes. Has he gotten controlled? Yes. He lost to Jacoby Jones, got finished with ground and pound. The ref stopped it. It was a bad stoppage. Like, he got cut with a good elbow, and it busted him open, but that stoppage was bullshit. I mean, was he maybe going to get finished the longer that the fight went? Yes, but it was a terrible stoppage. I don't necessarily count that as a TKO loss for Lebosnoyani. But Jack Congdon, I mean, I watched one of his most recent fights. I believe it's the fight that kind of put him on the map, and that was against Zach Davis. Yeah, his last fight in Cage Titans, got a second-round knockout. That was a fight where his forward pressure, he throws good kicks off the lead leg, to the body, can throw to the head as well. Solid overhands and hooks. He's good at just pushing forward and pressuring his opponents. He's a very pressure-heavy fighter. Like, he's going to look to get in your face, push you back, wear you out, take your best shots and just eventually break you down the stretch. That's the way this guy fights. And a lot of people are going to look at the Jacoby Jones fight and say that, he got broken by Jacoby Jones. I don't think that to be the case, man. I think he was maybe going to lose, but I don't think that was a good stoppage. I think that was a bad stoppage on the ref's part. I mean, he was still there. He was still coherent. Yes, he was bleeding. Yes, he was bloody. Yes, maybe it could have been a doctor stoppage, but I don't think it should have been stopped. Lebosnoyani, solid grappling, got a Americana with his legs. I forgot what that submission is called, but he basically figure four'd his legs and got that Americana submission over one of his more recent opponents. He's got good stance changes. He does have issues with pressure, and that's where I think people are going to look at Congdon, who is a pressure fighter on the front foot, pushing the opponent back, getting in his face, ripping shots to the body, shots over the top, Solid kicks to the head and kicks to the body. But we saw even in the last fight with Zach Davis, like before he knocked him out, before he caught him with that big overhand right, he was getting tired. And yes, he still had power, but he was gassing himself out with the pace that he set for that fight. I don't think he finishes and runs through Lebosnoyani. So I think if this fight gets out of round 1, yes, I think Lebosnoyani is going to be tired. Yes, I think Congdon is going to have some decent success. But I also think that the range management of Lebosnoyani is too good to get caught up in the pressure fighting style and the pocket exchanges of a guy like Jack Congdon. I think he's going to be using his footwork, his lateral movement, cutting angles, throwing kicks off those angles and those exits to kind of, either block the power hand when he throws the lead leg or just hurt those arms and hurt that guard when he throws up the rear leg. Like, that's kind of the way I see this fight going down. And could Congdon break Lebosnoyani? Maybe. But it's going to take a lot, especially for a guy who's, as I would say, well-versed with his footwork, distance control, angles, and combinations. He's good on the back foot. He can counter pretty well. He's also good on the front foot. He has a lot of power, and he's good on the ground. So if he wants to wrestle and use his grappling, I think he has a big advantage if he takes down Jack Congdon and beats him up from the top position. I think he's much better on the ground than Jack is. So I'm going to take Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani. I'm going to take him to win. I'm going to say they get into a war in the first round. Lebosnoyani lands some big shots. Congdon lands some big shots. But I think Lebosnoyani does the better work, the better technical work. Hit and don't get hit. I think he does more damage. I think Congdon's going to be slowed down in the second round. He's going to try to come forward and land some big shots. And I think with the style of Lebosnoyani, with the angles, the lateral movement, the backward movement, the counter striking, I think he's going to walk Jack Congdon into a big head kick in round 2, hurt him, push him up against the fence with some shots, rip to the body, rip up top, avoid the counters, and break down Jack Congdon for a second round TKO in the main event. So give me Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani to win. Second round TKO over Jack Congdon. Congdon's going to come to fight. Congdon's going to be on that front foot, be on that pressure, throwing big, heavy pocket boxing exchanges to the head, to the body, ripping knees, throwing big kicks, but I think Lebosnoyani's too sharp for him. He has better lateral movement, better counters, throws very solid kicks. I think they're better technically than Congdon, and I almost think he might have more power than Jack Congdon, and he's going to just walk him into counter shots all night. Tire him out in round 2. It's probably going to be a tough round 1, but I think he's going to hurt him with a head kick and finish him off in round 2. Give me Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani, round 2 TKO over Jack Congdon to round out week 4 of the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. All right, I'm your host, Double M. This has been the DWCS 2025 Week 4 preview, predictions, and breakdown. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts, leave me your predictions, your favorite people to bet on, your favorite underdogs. Let me know anything you want about Week 4 of the Contender Series in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and smash the notification bell with a lead upward elbow, a rear downward elbow, and a spinning back elbow to make sure you don't miss any future uploads from the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out.